If you were going to pitch this story today, you wouldn't call it a Bible story. You'd call it, I don't know, succession, but with sheep.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, you've got the aging, tyrannical patriarch who will not give up control. You've got the son-in-law who's been grinding away for 20 years just trying to build his own thing.
And then you have the daughters who you'd think are on their dad's side, but they're actually plotting a coup.
It really does read like a corporate thriller, except, instead of stock options, we're talking about spotted goats and stolen idols.
And a high-speed chase across the desert. Don't forget that part.
That is exactly what we are unpacking today. This whole breakout of Jacob and his family from Laban's household in Genesis 31.
Right.
I've been buried in the sources you sent over, and honestly, the archaeology just changes everything. We're not just looking at the text. We're looking at the Nutsi tablets, ancient labor laws.
And that very, very misunderstood blessing.
The Mizpah benediction, yeah.
Right.
We'll definitely get to that. But you're right. The context is the whole mission here. We're trying to decode the why.
Exactly. On the surface, Genesis 31 is just a story about a family moving. But when you layer in these laws from what is now modern-day Iraq, suddenly Rachel sitting on a camel saddle. It's not just a weird detail.
No, it's a legal maneuver. It's a heist.
It's a total heist.
But, okay, before we get to the getaway, we have to talk about the workplace. Because Jacob didn't just wake up one day and decide to leave. He's been working for Laban, his father-in-law, for 20 years. And toxic feels like an understatement.
Oh, it fits every modern definition. I mean, you have a boss, Laban, who just changes the rules whenever he wants. The text says he changed Jacob's wages 10 times.
That part just stood out to me.
10
times. In 20 years. So like every 2 years, just when Jacob figures out the system.
Right. Okay, I get the speckled sheep.
Laban just says, nope, new rule. Now you only get the striped ones. It's classic gaslighting. You're just shifting the goalposts so the employee can never, ever win.
Precisely. And the commentaries call him an autocratic powermonger. He sees his family not as people, but as assets. And Jacob starts to feel this. The text says he saw that the countenance of Laban had changed.
I think we've all felt that. You walk into a room and the vibe is just cold. You realize, okay, I'm not safe here anymore.
But it wasn't just a vibe, was it? The sources point out that Laban's sons were starting to talk.
Yeah, that's the classic whisper campaign. Jacob overhears them saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's.
They're framing his success as theft. And that's a dangerous, dangerous turning point. When your own family starts to see your game as their loss, you are in real trouble.
So Jacob gets the divine green light. God tells him, return to the land of your fathers. But this is where the strategy gets really interesting. He doesn't just announce it. He calls Rachel and Leah out to the field.
Why the field?
To avoid the bugs. I mean, the bugs in the walls. He needs to get away from Laban's surveillance. He has to know if his wives are loyal to him or to their dad.
And that is a huge gamble. In that culture, loyalty to the father. I mean, that usually trumps loyalty to the husband. Laban is the patriarch. Jacob is basically a high-level servant.
But their response, reading the analysis on this, was just shocking. They don't just agree to go, they're furious. They say, are we not counted of him strangers? For he has sold us and has quite devoured our money.
And that phrase, devoured our money, that's the smoking gun. In ancient Near Eastern custom, the dowry was supposed to be held in trust for the daughters. It was their social security.
So if they were widowed or divorced?
They'd have that money to live on.
Yeah.
But Laban spent it. He spent all of it. He treated his daughters like merchandise. So when they say they're strangers, they mean they've been stripped of their rights. They're basically slaves in their own father's house.
That context just flips the entire script. They aren't just being dutiful wives. They're victims of financial abuse escaping a predator.
So they plan the exit, and the timing is perfect.
Sheep shearing time.
Right, which is like the big harvest festival. Everyone's busy, they're celebrating. And Laban is probably miles away from the main camp. It's the perfect window.
So Jacob packs up everything, livestock, wives, kids, tents, and makes a run for the Euphrates, heading for Gilead.
Now let's talk about the chase. Because I pulled up a map. The distance from Haran to Gilead it's about 300 miles.
Yeah, something like that, between 275 and 350. And he's moving with sheep. I looked this up. A flock, especially with lambs, moves at maybe, 10 miles a day?
At best, if you're really pushing it. This is a massive, slow-moving caravan.
Laban finds out 3 days later, and he chases him down in 7 days. The math is just terrifying. Laban is moving at lightning speed.
He's on camels, riding hard. It's a full-on pursuit scene. You can just imagine Jacob looking over his shoulder, seeing that dust cloud on the horizon getting closer and closer. The stress must have been, just unbearable.
He knows what Laban is capable of.
He knows he has no legal recourse if Laban just decides to kill him and take everyone back.
But then, divine intervention kicks in. The night before the confrontation, God appears to Laban in a dream. And the instruction is so specific. Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob, either good or bad.
This is one of those Hebrew idioms that kind of gets lost. We think it means don't say nice things or mean things, but what it really means is don't try to change the outcome.
So it's a gag order.
In a way, yeah. It ties Laban's hands. He can't use honeyed words to charm Jacob back. That would be speaking good.
And he can't use threats to force him back, which would be bad.
Exactly. God is being a buffer. He's saying you can talk to him, but you can't leverage him.
Which explains why when Laban finally catches up, he just sounds so whiny. He plays the victim. Why'd you sneak off? I would have sent you away with songs. I didn't even get to kiss my grandkids.
Classic manipulation. Look how much you hurt me by escaping my abuse. But since God blocked him from using force, Laban has to pivot. He needs a legal reason. And that brings us to the accusation. Wherefore hast thou stolen my gods?
The teraphim. The household idols. This is the part where those Nutsi tablets you sent, they blew my mind. Because I always thought Rachel stole them because she was, superstitious.
That's the Sunday school answer. She was a closet idolater. And look, maybe that's partly true.
Right.
But the Nutsi texts, which come from a culture very similar to Laban's, they suggest something much, much smarter.
They're basically deeds to the property, right?
Essentially, yeah. In that legal system, possessing the household gods could act as a claim to the main inheritance. If a son-in-law had the teraphim, he could go to court and argue he was the rightful head of the family, even over the sons.
Wow. That makes Rachel's theft so much more strategic. She knows her dad devoured her dowry, so she steals the idols not to worship them, but as an insurance policy.
It's a form of restorative justice in her eyes. You took our money, fine. I'm taking the title deed to the whole estate.
And it explains why Laban is panicking. Doesn't care about the religion, he cares about his assets. He's terrified Jacob is going to show up in 10 years, slap these idols on a table, and just own everything.
Exactly. It turns this from a family squabble into a high-stakes property dispute.
But here's the problem. Jacob doesn't know. He has no idea she took them, so he's offended. He thinks he's innocent. So he says, and I just cringe reading this, with whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live.
The rash vow, it's terrifying. He's just put a death sentence on the wife he loves most, and he doesn't even know it.
The dramatic irony is off the charts. So Laban rips the camp apart. Jacob's tent, Leah's tent, the handmaid's tents, nothing. Finally, he gets to Rachel's tent, and we get this scene that's almost a comedy if it weren't so high stakes.
Rachel has hidden the idols in the camel's saddle, which is probably sort of cushion seat, and she's just sitting on it.
Laban walks in, ready to bust her, and she just sits there. She looks up and says, "Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up, for the manner of women is upon me."
She plays the menstruation card. And it's brilliant for two reasons. One, it stops Laban cold. In that culture, menstrual blood was seen as ritually unclean. He's not going to risk digging through those cushions.
And the second reason.
It is the ultimate insult to the idols. Think about it. These are the gods he worships, the symbols of his authority. And his daughter is literally sitting on them while menstruating. She's making them unclean. She's showing them to be totally powerless.
It's satire. She's saying, "Some gods you've got, Dad. They can't even get me off this chair."
Exactly. The great deceiver Laban is deceived by his own daughter, using his own taboos against him.
So Laban comes up empty. He looks like a fool. And now the power dynamic just completely flips. Jacob has been scared for a week, but now that he thinks he's been vindicated, the adrenaline just dumps.
Right.
He explodes.
And this speech he gives is so revealing. It's the whole labor dispute. He says, "In the day the drought consumed me and the frost by night." He talks about losing sleep.
He brings up the torn animals clause, which was such a great detail from the research.
Right. Under the Code of Hammurabi, if a lion kills a sheep, the shepherd isn't liable. It's an act of God. But Jacob says, "I bore the loss of it." Laban made him pay for everything.
He's laying out a 20-year lawsuit right there in the mountains.
He is. And he forces Laban to admit he's got nothing. He can't find the goods. God won't let him use force. Jacob has the moral high ground. So Laban, being a politician, proposes a treaty.
Saves face. He suggests they build a heap of stones, a witness. Jacob calls it Gilead. Laban calls it Jagar Sahaduf.
Both mean heap of witness. And this leads us to the verse that I think most people have heard this, even if they don't know the story, the Mizpah benediction.
Genesis 31:49. The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another.
Sounds lovely, doesn't it?
It sounds so beautiful. I mean, I've seen this on keychains, on greeting cards for long-distance relationships. It's supposed to mean even when we're apart, God connects us.
A lovely sentiment, but completely 100% wrong in this context.
Wait, really?
In this story, this is not a blessing, it is a threat.
A threat.
Look at what they're doing. They're building a physical barrier. Laban is saying, I can't watch you because you're leaving, and I don't trust you one bit. So I am calling on God to be the surveillance camera.
So it's more like, God is watching you, so don't you dare mistreat my daughters or come back for my stuff.
Yes. Laban explicitly says, I will not pass over this heap to thee for harm. It's a non-aggression pact. It's a restraining order. It's two enemies agreeing to stay on their side of the fence because they hate each other, but they fear God more.
Wow. That ruins the keychain industry, doesn't it?
It certainly complicates it.
But it's also more real. I mean, look at the theology. Laban swears by the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor. He's mixing gods. But Jacob swears only by the fear of his father Isaac.
The fear of Isaac. It's this unique title for God. It captures the mood perfectly. Jacob isn't feeling warm and fuzzy. He has spent 20 years living in fear of Laban, and now he's putting his trust in the God that Isaac revered.
So they seal the deal, eat a meal, and then they part ways. The great escape is a success.
But look at the mess. A father who will never see his daughters again. Daughters who had to steal to get their own inheritance. A son-in-law traumatized by 2 decades of exploitation. It's not clean.
It's so messy, and I think that's what makes the ending so powerful, because despite all the lying, the scheming, the theft,
Yeah.
God kept his promise.
That's the anchor. God told Jacob, return, and I will be with you. He didn't say, I'll be with you if your family is functional. He worked through the mess. He used Rachel's theft. He used Laban's dream. Providence was weaving through all these flawed human decisions to get Jacob home.
It's a relief, honestly, because if God can work with this family, he can probably work with ours.
I think that's a very fair conclusion to draw.
But before we wrap up, that Mizpah idea, it really bothers me how much we've domesticated it.
It's a perfect example of that. We're uncomfortable with the grid of the Bible. We don't like a blessing that's actually a treaty between enemies, so we polish it, we turn it into a Hallmark card.
But what do we lose when we do that?
We lose the reality. The Bible was written about real people in dangerous situations. When we sanitize it, we make it safe, but we also make it less potent. If the Lord watch between me and thee is just a nice thought, it's forgettable. But if it's a desperate plea for God to keep the peace between two men who want to kill each other,
That has power.
that has power. That speaks to the world we actually live in.
And that's the thought I want to leave everyone with. Next time you see a nice Bible verse on a coffee mug, ask yourself, what was happening in the room when that was said? Was it a tea party or was it a standoff?
9 times out of 10, it's the standoff.
Go check the sources. Read Genesis 31. It's a wild ride. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.